But the general consensus of the retail community is that it's so much harder to do this job now.
I wonder how much of that is just the accumulated scar tissue of being a retailer. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yes, Dal. Yes, I do.
I mean, literal and figurative, like both physical and emotional and mental scar tissue.
In the Midwest, you know the best is there waiting, so come and join the conversation. Highs the approved, fan and artist and creator too. This is how the challengers do. What? Keep the conversation moving along. Keep bringing comics, keep your local store strong. If it's hard, then it's a job for the challengers. What? Comics and conversation, y'all.
From Challengers Comics and Conversation in Chicago, this is Contest of Challengers,
The lowest of all entertainment.
a comics industry business podcast with
The scummiest of the scum, the lowest of the low, the stinkiest of the stinky. Patrick Brower. Brower the Sour, they call him.
and
W. Dal Bush. It's so bad. It's such a hideous name, Dal.
So, like, I prefer to read the box stuff from DC on my computer while...
When you say you can only scroll, do you mean left to right or top to bottom?
Up and down.
Okay.
Which is such a weird... Like, I get that it's sort of a default way of interacting with PDFs.
Oh, I get it, because I only look at those same files on a PC.
Right.
And I prefer to scroll up and down.
Oh, I hate that.
But
yeah,
you're...
I'd rather go left and right. Like, there's specifically programs I've downloaded so that with PDFs I own, I can just plug it in there and then you use the directional arrows and it treats it like left and right content instead of up and down, endlessly scrolling page content. But I was going to say the flip side is that I prefer, like, actual downloaded PDFs. I usually just put in Google Drive, and I like reading those on my iPad because I can just go into Google Drive, display it, and then everything scrolls and interacts the way I expect it to. So when I'm reading stuff from, like, publishers that give us PDFs and DC at the same time, I almost have to be in two different places. I hate it.
Interesting.
I dislike the Box app so much.
But everybody uses Box now.
They do, and I'm sure that's for a lot of really good financial reasons as well as security reasons, but it's not necessarily for end-user reasons like me.
Huh. I never have a problem with it. Mm-hmm. I just read it the way it's given. There's some books, like I have a Dropbox file. Not Box, but Dropbox.
Yes.
I wonder if they're owned by the same parent company.
I have no idea.
That has some bigger PDF preview books or standalone graphic novels, things like that, in one set folder, and that's stuff that I've kept for a while.
Okay.
And then I was going through cleaning out some stuff. I'm like, oh, I don't need to have Where Monsters Lie number 4.
Right.
So I deleted it. But then there's a couple things because the titles get abbreviated. I'm like, what was this? And I pull it up, and it's like, oh, it saves them with the watermarks on them. Like when you download it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, like, it's just like, oh, I was saving this as a copy to have to reread later.
Oh, okay.
It's like, oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
like
my policy is to save something until I read it or until it comes out in print. And after either one of those, I delete it.
But I like that I have all of the Reckless books. Actually, I don't have 4.
Oh.
We've got 1, 2, 3, and 5, and then both Pulp and Night Fever and Where the Body Was.
Yeah.
All in the same Brubaker Phillips folder.
Good idea.
And I have a whole folder of Kyle Stark stuff I bought from his website. A lot of his...
That's cool.
Inktober stuff and his short
yeah, I mean,
stories
I've got
and things.
some comics on a drive that's basically, it's stuff I've bought from people that was only available digitally, like GGDG, who did Cucumber Quest.
Sure.
Had some stuff that they had done as PDF comics, so I just bought those.
It's interesting to me to see creators that were such a big deal to us earlier in Challenger's lifespan that are virtually not existent now.
Yeah, they got out of the game or they just started doing other stuff. I mean, I'm sure they're doing art somewhere in some way. Like, Natalie Nurigat is an animator at Pixar or Disney.
Yeah.
One of them.
Sure.
And so she doesn't do comics anymore. I mean, the last comic she did was about becoming an animator. Like, that was kind of it. I assume other people are doing the same sort of things where, doing sequential comics just isn't paying the bills, and at a certain point, you start taking other gigs. Like DG never finished Cucumber Quest and ended up doing like a graphic novel for She-Ra. I think wrote that when that was the big show on Netflix.
Yeah.
And yeah, maybe is writing somewhere or animating somewhere or designing somewhere. I don't know.
But then you look at a book like Amulet, which was such a big thing for challengers.
Sure.
And
We still sell.
still isn't finished.
Yeah.
Still isn't finished.
I guess next year, I think, is what
Yeah, in
Pete said
February
at
of
a-
next
at
year.
a recent
So they say.
convention.
But if you look at when it started and how it was like, 6 months, then 8 months, then a year and a half, and
Sure.
then we have a signed poster on the inside back door of Sidekicks that actually got at San Diego in 2014,
Okay.
and that was book 6.
Promoting the upcoming book 6, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're up to 8 now, and that was 7 years ago.
Yeah. Well, I think he'd also said, the author had said at the same panel that he basically hinted, like, we are working on an animated adaptation of it, which is probably eating up a bunch of time.
Yeah. Just weird that the age of the people that were so into it, I don't think
Dude, there are kids that are going to be reading the final volume that were not born when the first one came out.
But I'm saying I don't think my adult nephew Matthew, who was so into it, is going to care at all for the last issue.
Ask.
I will. We'll see. It's just funny how when I look back at not only my career as a retailer, which is a very long time, how we're looking at the 30th anniversary of Death of Superman stuff and Return of Superman stuff. I'm like, I remember ordering those when they were new.
Yeah, I mean, I remember buying them as a kid.
Yeah.
I was probably working at a comic shop at that point. It's hard to remember. I think I was. For Return of Superman, I feel like I probably was.
And then to see...
What was that, 93? Is that... Yeah, 93. I
91 was Death of.
Well, this is the 30th anniversary of Return of Superman, which, I mean, I guess they're combining Reign of the Superman and Return of Superman into one thing.
Yeah.
So 93, I was definitely working at a comic shop by then. I'm sure of it.
Well, you were getting paid.
I was working at a comic shop. 92, maybe. Iffy, maybe. I don't know.
So often it feels that this industry is made up of lifers, people that have been doing this for a very long time. And then even when you look at, like, and I'm going to say kids, even though that's the wrong word, the kids over at Goblin Market, they've been doing this for 14 and 20 some odd years before they got to their own shop.
Sure.
So they're the new kids in the Chicago retail game, but also have a lifetime of history behind it.
Yeah.
And it's funny to look back and think, like, that was us 15 years ago.
Yeah.
The new kids in Chicago retail game who had a career.
Who had managed multiple stores.
Yeah.
and collectively been in comics for, what was it by that point? Like 30 years plus?
Collectively, yeah.
Yeah.
17 and a half for me. And you were close to 17.
Yeah.
Obviously, the distinction is mine was full-time and you
Correct.
did part-time for a while.
Yeah.
Although I think collectively you got hit with more posters than I did.
Oh, I'm sure of it.
Not that I didn't get hit with any.
No, it was a non-zero amount.
Yeah.
But it was a smaller number.
Yeah, probably. But the general consensus of the retail community is that it's so much harder to do this job now.
Yeah, I wonder how much of that is just the accumulated scar tissue of being a retailer. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yes, Dal. Yes, I do.
I mean, literal and figurative, like both physical and emotional and mental scar tissue, where it becomes more difficult because you've been doing it for so long, that your ability to sort of roll with the punches or to find optimism or to get a second wind is hampered by having to have done those things so many times over God knows how many years. So it could just be the bias of everyone's real old. So everything is harder. Everything is more stressful. Everything is a little bit less happy, basically. Like the things you're doing make you slightly less fulfilled than they might have in previous days.
So fulfilling was a goal at one point, huh?
I don't know about that. I mean, I think most people would like to feel fulfilled in their jobs or their personal lives, but that doesn't necessarily mean it happens. But certainly I think there's a background desire to be fulfilled.
So you're saying that you think that the job getting harder is a result of doing it for as long as it has been done versus all the difficulties in industry today?
Well, one, I'm saying it can be two things. But I'm also saying that maybe it's more 50-50 than people who have been doing this for very long would like to admit.
Even give it to consideration to admit.
To give it a comparison, it's the classic thing where a lot of older fans will look at the things they were enjoying and go, well, these are bad now. And it's like, no, they're fine. You just can't enjoy them as much as you used to. Like, the comics didn't get small, you did, or whatever. I don't know, however you want to warp that phrase.
It's funny because obviously I had such a soft spot to the Marvel books of the 70s when I was really getting into it. And I would go back and read whatever reprints I could, thanks to Marvel Tales and Marvel's Greatest Comics. And
Did you ever do Luke Cage Hero for Hire, this month's Marvel calendar?
I have a couple of issues, yeah.
Never something you didn't get into until Power Man and Iron Fist?
Yeah, Power Man and Iron Fist was my game, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Love that book. Love that book. That Joe Duffy, he really knew what he was doing.
Same dude who did Punisher.
Yeah.
Real man's man. That was a Peter David joke from back in the day.
I always wonder when we do something dumb like that, if someone's like, Joe Duffy was a woman. We know.
Glasses pushed up for Jeff knows.
Yeah. Yeah. But then when you go back and look at a lot of those early 60s Marvel books, they're so wordy. There's so much dialogue and exposition and caption boxes. And I kind of hate that in today's comics.
Yeah, well, so, I mean, I think that the specific thing with that is that it's kind of serving two different audiences. Like, there's been plenty of first issues for smaller publishers, non-superhero genre stuff, where I'm like, holy crap, do you not need this much detail in your first issue? You have not engaged me with the story. You're just giving me a ton of information I have no emotional context for. I'm not, like, incentivized to remember all this stuff. Versus, a random issue of Amazing Spider-Man that's maybe overwritten because they have a weird premise and midway through a story and they have to catch you up because there's a chance you didn't read the last one and there's a chance you're never going to read another one.
Sure.
So they have to create a density, and some of that is also like, that's just the Stan Lee style, man. Like, he set that template, and Roy Thomas and Jerry Conway and all those other guys were like, yep, that's how you do it. That's a Marvel book.
When I used to do my photo comic Christmas cards back in the day, one of them was very elaborate and had like a solid 16 pages or something.
Wow.
Don't say wow, you should remember it.
I do, but I mean, it's still,
Thanks.
People who listen to this don't need me to go, They need me to be like, wow, really? That's amazing.
Well, if you'd said, like, I remember that one, people will be like, oh yeah, that's a real thing. It happened. As opposed to me just making it up.
I don't think they think you're lying.
But one of the things I learned how to do quickly with those things is to take what I was trying to say and say it in a lot less words when you are using speech bubbles on a page.
Oh, yeah.
And
that's a real skill.
One of the things, like the easiest way to cheat is to change the size of the font, but you can't do that. You have to be consistent all the way through.
That's a total... It's a real amateur hour move that I'll see people do in like really early self-published stuff is like, well, there's a ton I want to say, so I'm just going to make the font really small. No, say it more concisely.
Jonathan Hickman's first book, The Nightly News, that he wrote and drew, and he came from a graphic design background, and he said that he deliberately broke all of the graphic design rules when making that book.
Yeah. And
I myself have just finished a long-form project, not in the comics industry, and I almost said what it was, but I realized I cannot say it on this podcast what it is.
Oh.
But in it, I had to break so many graphic design rules.
Yeah.
And I understand why I broke them.
For, like, expediency or for...
For layout, for...
Legibility.
Yeah. For design reasons.
Sure.
And I hated that I had to do it, but it was necessary. And then I thought, I could do this thing to take up some of the space, and that wound up... And I spent up, like, days working on a thing that eventually I just said, no, I don't like it, and scrapped it all. And even now, as I'm done with it, I'm like, well, every once in a while, I'm like, let me check this page. and be like, oh, here's a spelling mistake or here's a spacing mistake. And I fixed all the easy stuff, but now to redo it would be a lot more work. And I've been told, leave it alone.
Leave it alone.
But I can't. And part of me is like, specific creative people that I know are going to see this. And I feel like I have to already explain why.
Oh my God. No, you don't. How many times have you talked to an artist and the first thing they want to do is tell you all the things they did wrong and why they did them wrong? And it's like, don't take that.
Don't belittle the achievement.
Don't take the enjoyment away from the reader by telling them all the reasons they're not supposed to like it. Don't do that.
Well, I was only going to do that to two people specifically.
Yeah.
But it's a thing. It's like, now that I've done it, I would do it completely differently if I were doing it over.
Every artist. Every single artist.
Yeah.
You get to the end of the project and you're like, these were all the mistakes I made. Correctable mistakes, most of them, but they were mistakes. But, that's the creative process. I don't know, man. There's no roadmap.
But one of the things is relying on spell check, and when you misspell a word but misspell it with a real word, it's not going to catch it.
Sure, that's true. Although sometimes it also corrects it into a word that's also a real word that's close enough where you're like, oh, I didn't realize that didn't say incentive and said inventive instead.
Like duck.
Thank you. Yep.
So anyway, that is just a curse, a thing we have to deal with. It's fine, though. It's fine. But I do prefer less exposition on a comic page. I do prefer letting the art tell the story whenever possible.
There's been a bunch of times I've gotten promo PDFs from publishers, and at that point, they're not soliciting your advice or whatever. They're just saying
they're saying you get to read it early.
Here's what you're going to sell in a few weeks. But there's been a couple times where I've gotten the first few pages, and it's like, Jesus Christ, all of this would read so much better with no dialogue. You are making this take forever when it could be a much more fluid, engaging experience.
Dialogue shouldn't describe the art. You have a visual medium.
There's a lot of things that writers will do where they'll want to. We'll talk later about the various preview PDFs we read, and I'm not going to say which one this was, but of one of them, there's a whole bunch of stuff in the beginning where it's someone narrating it, and it's like, you don't need this narration. This is just getting in the way. And it's not overly wordy or clunky or anything. It's just
Was it Jeffrey Rush?
I don't get
it. From Green Lantern.
Oh, yeah. Tomar Lee, what was it? Or was he Evan Sir?
I don't know. I never saw that movie.
I think I did at some point. Hal Jordan bought a football club in Wales.
There's Ryan Reynolds is now the spokesperson for I think it's called Monarch, maybe? A new...
Mint?
What's that?
Mint? His mobile company?
Maybe it's Mint.
Yeah, he owns that.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, almost anything he's a spokesperson for is a thing he owns.
Well, to give a better understanding of how the company works, he had one of their technical people come on the commercial and explain it. And Ryan Reynolds is playing Ryan Reynolds, owner of the company.
Right.
And Grant Gustin is playing the character of his staff member who's explaining how the search engine works. And Ryan Reynolds just says things like, so you're saying it's pretty quick, right? People can find things in a flash? And he's pausing huh? And Grant Gustin's character is like, yeah, I guess so. But yeah, as in a flash, right? Why are you doing that?
That's fun stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, how much dialogue, how much narration, how much writing should be in a first issue is a thing that is, I feel so hard to get right, and one of the major things that will determine whether or not I read an issue 2.
We gave away Unnatural Order #1 to all subscribers this week. It's a new Vault comic written by Chris Rios, and because Vault made it accessible for us to expand to a wider marketplace, we chose to give a copy to every subscriber.
Yeah.
For free. And there was a couple people that said, I don't think I ordered this. No, it's free. You get to have this.
Yeah, we put it in an email to everyone who was getting books this past week, but obviously not everyone gets books this week. And more than that, not everyone who got books reads their email.
Yeah, which is what I wanted to say to everybody. Oh, you didn't read the email, did you? But Anyway, it is... Now, I've already gotten feedback from a few people who liked it.
Great.
And who thought it had a really fun surprise ending.
It's got a great hook.
Yeah.
Hook's all the way at the end, but it's real good.
But how would you know about that hook, Dal?
Uh-huh. You could read the absolute back of the book that lays out what the hook is in a paragraph.
The back of the book lays it out that way?
Yeah, like if you flip over
the
book,
back cover.
Yeah, the back cover.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant like a text piece at the end.
No, the back cover has the solicit, like the elevator pitch, more or less. The one paragraph that describes not only the premise of the book, but the thing that makes the book a series rather than just a single issue.
Yeah, and that is a complaint I have about a lot of solicitation where they give you the hook in the solicitation, but you don't get it until the end of the book.
But here's the thing. I would flip that around and say that's less a failing of the marketing and more the marketing trying to salvage the construction of the first issue, which should not save the reason you're reading the book for the very last page. We talked about it when we were talking about Midlife, because it's the same thing, where the entire first issue is like the minutia of this guy's life and the ennui, and then the final page is like, oh, and he's fireproof. And it's like, there's your book!
Yeah.
Why is that the end? Because I'm not going to read issue 2 now to see what happens next. You already bored me with issue 1. Like, one of my biggest pet peeves in comics. It is, I get why writers think they should do that when they're plotting out a 5 or 6 issue miniseries. You wouldn't, if you were making a 120-minute movie, you wouldn't put necessarily... plenty of people will do this, but necessarily you wouldn't put the entire premise in the first 2 minutes of the film.
Yeah.
You would lead up to it, so at minute 10, maybe. And that's kind of, I'm sure, how they're thinking about it in terms of, like, a graphic novel. And it's like, you're not selling a graphic novel. Like,
if it's a
Brubaker and Phillips
issue...
can get away with that if they're selling you an $18 to $20 graphic novel. If you are pitching me on spending $16 more, and I've already spent $4... that $4 better work for me, or you're not getting the other 16.
Sure. And when you think of it as the big picture, like you said, when you think of it as a collected version, that's fine. You're reading the first act, not even the start of the first act. But sequentially, you got to move faster.
Yeah, and we've mentioned this a million times.
1 million times.
This is a million was one. Yeah. The counter turns over. When you are selling a first issue, that has to be the best material you have. It can't be a promise of a story to come. It can't be a promise of huge things are going to happen. It has to work. One of the books that I read this week in a PDF, first issue works. It's got surprises. It does a lot in the first issue. It gets you to where you know what the rest of the series is going to be. But in the first chapter, they still gave you a lot to work with.
Is it 8 Billion Genius #1?
It's not.
Oh.
That's an old series. You can buy it in a hardcover. It's really good.
Nice. It's now time to thank our Patreon supporters, including our annual patrons, Becca Hilburn and Joseph Coco, Bren Helt, Dal's mom, Diane Bush, President of the Brian Garside Fan Club, Django Borin, Philip Sablik from Boom Studios, Jose Villagomez, Josh Crowley of Westfield Comics, our bestest wrestling watching pal, Michael Lee, Michael Romanenko, our patrons who have created their own tier, Andrew, Drew Troit Aaliyah, Bridget K. Neville, Chris Burton, Claudine Neville, our other generous patrons from the Say My Name pledge level, Ben-Hur Benedict Calaguas, Brad Brooks from Dumb Shit Done Well, Managed Comic Zone, Brian Garside, Christopher Haith, Drew Triner and Ashley Edwards, Challengers Reservist, Fallon Mackerline, my brother George Brower, Heidi D., Holly Aitchison, Jacob Sorelli of Kamikaze, Josh Trigg, Mark Hammond of Aw Yeah Comics, Margie, Keith, Logan, and Malcolm Springham, Matt Armstrong, Mitchell Davies of All-Star Comics in Melbourne, Australia, Morgan Dynamite Perry, my longtime pal Robert Burns, Ron Payne, Sean Bowers, Tad Eggleston and Johnny Williams, Thomas Nagovin of Century Guild, Walt Grogan, Walt's Comic Shop from Berlin, Germany. And if you want to hear your name thanked on this very podcast once a month, head over to patreon.com/challengers and pledge at the $5 Say My Name level. And a big thank you to all our other patrons at the various other pledge levels. Well, now, last week we promised, you specifically, you promised.
I did.
About talking about draft orders because you were so excited to go into detail about the process and why we use them now and how much, I guess, to use another name for a Shopify app we use, how much joy it brings you.
That doesn't sound familiar, but I'll take your word for it. My memory's not great.
I mean, I can kick you off if you want. I can kick it off and give you lead into it.
Sure, let's do that.
I'm not going to kick you off the podcast.
That's
what you want.
I was getting punished or rewarded. I don't know what was happening right now. You seemed upset, but I'm okay with it.
So we talk about draft orders, and what that means for us specifically is when dealing with subscribers who add a book from the shelf, a book that they didn't pre-order, that they didn't subscribe to, and that they're not buying, a book they want to get later, or if they call and ask to put it aside. In the olden days, and I'm sure we've talked about this sometimes in the past, but it's a much bigger deal right now for us. In the old days with an old system, it was very easy to take a book off the shelf and put it into someone's account. Put it on their account.
Yeah, that was functionality that the Comic Suite, the Diamond subscription management program that was looped into RMH, would allow you to do. It would just basically take a copy from the shelf stock and move it into kind of a committed field. So it was not part of your currently active inventory. It would just be set aside, essentially. And it would go on someone's account. So then when someone would come in and you bring up their account, that book would be on there. Great.
But in that time period, we were not an online retailer. We didn't have every single item in the store also available for online sales for anybody with an internet connection to browse.
Right.
And were we to just take an item off of a shelf and put it into a hold box for someone, that book remains active on the website, and it is more than possible, nay probable, that someone finds it online and buys it, and then we can't sell it to them because it doesn't technically exist for sale.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, we don't even know where the book is.
Correct. Here is a thing that I find weekly to be infuriating about how consumer behavior works on our website. If there is an error with our inventory, be it a bug in the system, a missing copy of something, or just weird operator error, if there is a discrepancy in the inventory, that book will immediately be found and purchased within the first week of sales.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
We can have 180 new items on our website. The 5 that are wrong are the 5 that someone's going to buy. Not the ones that we have tons of copies of, where a discrepancy of 1 or 2 copies would be invisible. No. The ones where it's like, we thought we had 1, but we have 0. That's immediately what's going to get bought. And that's the thing I'm going to have to, refund somebody. And I don't know why it happens. I mean, I can tell you why I think it happens, which is basically that the stuff that people want to buy from our website are not the things that are available everywhere. They're the things that nobody else has, or the things that are hard to get, or the things that are in high demand. They're not going to care about Batman Gotham War Scorched Earth, because that's everywhere. Everyone's got that. They're going to care about a Spider-Boy #1 variant. They're going to care about
Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees.
Right. I was thinking about other stuff that came out this week. But yeah, I mean, basically that. They're going to care about that stuff. So when we are off by 1, that's the stuff that's going to sell. And that's the stuff that then we have to figure out the errors for. So yeah, like Patrick was saying, in the old days, it was fairly simple to take an active item that was on sale on the shelves and then add it to someone's subscription account. That's much harder to do with how Shopify and Managed Comics are currently operating. Basically, anything that you add to your account before we receive it is super easy to add to your account. Once we receive the books, and what I think an industry term, but what we've adopted, just ingestion, which is, I think, a thing that I've heard Brian at Managed Comics refer to it as ingestion.
I've literally never used that.
I use it all the time. On ingestion, when you're taking the invoice and you're feeding it into Managed Comics, and it is turning that into items on Shopify and things on people's accounts, anything added to someone's account before that point means that when we put the invoice in, it will then take those items and set them aside for people. Super simple. That's the whole process. That is what's happening every single week when we're getting in invoices from Penguin Random House, from Lunar, from Diamond. It's slowly adding things to people's accounts so that Wednesday morning when people come in, that stuff is waiting for them. If a book has already been received and is part of Shopify inventory, and then someone says, hi, I'd like to add that to my account, that is really, really difficult to do. Not difficult necessarily. There have been advances in Shopify's architecture that makes it a little easier to do, but it's still a bunch more additional steps than we used to do, and we have to do them for what amounts to a single comic book for the most part. Yeah. And that makes the time it takes to do it feel
less productive.
Misaligned, let's say, with the eventual rewards. So basically, let's say it's the Wednesday that books have come out. Someone calls up and says, hey, I saw that this graphic novel came out. Let's say it's Bodies. And I want to add that to my account. Now, this is going to happen because we have done promotion for these things. This is, in some ways, the system working as intended. We do social media videos Tuesday night to say, hey, these are the things that are coming out. These are the things that you might not know about. These are the things that we're excited about. And, God willing, someone sees them and goes, oh, wow, those are things I want now. I want to buy those things. That's great. The problem is it's better for us if you see those videos and then come into the store and buy them. That's great. That's awesome. We love that. You seeing them and then saying, oh, reserve that for me, is a thing where, okay, now we have to go get that, and then we have to create a draft order for it. This is how Shopify has kind of created a solution for a lot of retailers that they work with, not comic retailers, but just general retailers, saying we need a system where I can take an item and basically make it inactive on our website. Someone has asked me to reserve this for them, and I don't want there to be an instance where someone buys it on the website and I have to refund them. I certainly don't want to go through that multiple times before someone eventually comes and buys it. And some of the hacks that people had come up with where it's like, well, just reduce the quantity in the system by 1, and then when someone comes in, raise the quantity, is like you are interacting with your inventory way too often if you're doing that. You're
asking for trouble.
And on top of that, like, we're a small store, so the people who are interacting with Shopify's data and inventory are owners like myself and Patrick and managers like Molly Jane. So that's fine. But if you have a larger operation where it might just be an hourly employee who's working for a couple days a week, they're not necessarily going to know how to do that. And also, you're maybe not going to give them access to that, because you give them access to that, they got access to a lot of other things that they could be doing with the inventory, and you don't want them doing that. So we do what's called creating a draft order. And what a draft order is us going into Shopify and creating an order from scratch. It's not something that's been bought on the website. It's not something that is currently being rung up at point of sale. It is us creating an order where it says Patrick Brower is getting the Bodies trade. So we create...
Bodies.
Thank you. So we create a draft order where we assign it to Patrick Brower, and then we add the item that's being reserved, which is Bodies trade paperback. And then what Shopify now allowed people to do with the draft orders is set a reserve date where everything in the draft order is reserved for however many days that you give it. The default is usually like a week. I usually go several months out because hopefully a subscriber is going to be in a month. Sometimes that doesn't happen, and I don't want this thing to suddenly become active on the website after a month and I don't notice it. So we create the draft order, we assign it a reserve date, a date that after the reserve date it will go back into inventory. And then we bag it up and we put a little note in it that says delete draft order, because what we have to do then is when someone comes in and wants to get their subscription stuff and their item that they asked us to set aside, the subscription stuff is easy. That's all on your account. The draft order, we then have to go into draft orders, delete the draft order that we created because delete. Because we can't essentially combine the draft order with your subscription stuff because that's kind of not how the two different things work in Shopify. So we have to delete the draft order. So
that'd be easy.
Yeah.
And that would make sense.
So deleting the draft order then takes the quantity that we've reduced for an item and puts it back essentially into play. So then we can go ring it up and it will get taken out of the system by being wrung out and everything's fine. So these are all the extra steps we have to do when someone just calls up and says, hey, there's a thing on your shelf. I want to get it in a week. Put it aside for me. It is not nearly as simple as just, I will put it in your box. That's a thing that's very easy to say on the phone. It is significantly more steps for us to do that in the store. So in general, the preference is like, if it's before Thursday at noon and nothing's on our website yet, go to the store and buy it. That would be great.
Now,
otherwise, after Thursday at noon, when everything for the week goes on the website, buy it for local pickup. And then it just goes in your box, and it's paid for, and it's out of inventory, and it's all done, and we love that.
We do have a decent number of subscribers that do that very thing.
Yeah.
That buy books off the shelf and just have them, we stick them in their box, they pick them, they come up.
Thursday afternoon. Yeah.
And I do not mind doing the draft order for subscribers when it's a one-off. Like, hey, I can't make it in today. I really want this book. I forgot to add it or whatever.
Yeah.
Things happen. That's fine.
Right.
But when it's the same people with multiple books week after week after week,
yeah,
that is someone who refuses to work within the system.
Right.
Because their time is way more valuable than our time.
Yeah, because in general, how the system works is you have until the final order cutoff date to reserve an item. After that, you can't edit and manage comics. And while we'll try and work with you on occasion, we don't love the idea of having to add stuff to people's accounts after the orders have closed for them, because that's less rack copies now, and that's maybe a thing that we have to now place an additional order for. And these are things where it's like, there is a system, and the system is set up a certain way to make it
beneficial to you and to us.
Or I was going to say, just make it reliable for everyone involved. Like, if you're adhering to these things, you'll get your books when they come out. We'll pull them for you. It's all good. It's all taken care of. The more you ask for things to happen outside of that, the more failure points exist, the more difficulty we have in providing for you, and additionally, the more chances something's going to go wrong somewhere. Yeah, I don't love doing draft orders, even though it's the best solution we have right now.
And it seems that we're doing more and more of them all the time.
I have to print out so many delete draft order
of the
sheets
wonderful delete draft order sheets you printed. You keep having to make more and more because
I keep having to make more. I don't know why.
Well, sure you do, because you make draft orders and the people that have the draft orders don't come in.
We reuse those sheets. I want people to know that. So, like the thing that we put in the little bag that says delete draft order, we used to just write it up on a Post-it note and slap it on there. But we were tired of constantly having to write up the Post-it notes. So I created a little form, a little sheet that goes inside. And when someone comes in and gets their book that's been set aside, that we then have to delete the draft order, I take the sheet out and I put it back in the box so that we can reuse that sheet for another draft order. And yet we keep running out of the sheets because they're all in people's boxes. And now I have to print out another sheet and cut out 4 more of them. Yeah. That's the fact that I've had to been doing that is really the wake-up call of like, we're setting a lot of things aside for people. That's not how this is supposed to work.
Yeah. I mean, it's great people want things.
Yeah, again, that's part of the reason why we're not just like, no, we're not doing that, is these are people who saw something online and were like, oh man, I want that now. And this is not necessarily people who are like speculators, you know?
Right.
These aren't people who are like, I got to get that hot book because I hear it's going to be worth a lot of money. Then we'd say like, no, first come, first serve, come to the store. But when it's someone who's like, hey, I'm a subscriber, I've been with you for, like, they're not saying this, I'm thinking this. I've been with you for a number of years. I have not burned you on anything. I get my stuff. I'm excited about comics. I'm excited about this comic that I didn't pre-order. I always want to say yes. I want to be like, yeah, why would I not want you to start a new series that you might love and want to add to your subscriptions? But yet it is a whole bunch of extra work where it's like, but if you had pre-ordered this, I wouldn't be doing this right now. So it's a little bit of a...
You know, there's always an exception where you thought you would pre-ordered a one-off
Sure.
and,
I mean,
and didn't
like-
realize, or
Yeah, like you had said, if it's a one-off thing,
yeah,
something happened, you can't make it to the store, or you thought you'd signed up for something but hadn't.
Yeah, fine.
Absolutely, sure.
fine.
But the difficulty is when it's the same people every week or month or whatever, and it's like,
Or the constant. I only have 3 books on my list, but here's the 12 books I pulled off the wall, and I'll come back and get them later.
yeah, less fun.
So much less fun.
Yo, everybody. I'm David Harper, the host of the comics podcast Off Panel and the person who runs the comic site Sketched. And I have big news for you if you shop at Challengers Comics and Conversation. Challengers is the only shop in the United States carrying the first ever sketch zine. This 76-page zine collects writing and interviews about comics from yours truly and includes a giant interview with writer Kieran Gillen, a cover by colorist Rico Renzi, guest appearances from Brian Michael Bendis and Kyle Starks, and a whole lot more. It's a ton of fun, and it's available both in-store and online at Challengers. Pick it up while supplies last, as there's only going to be one print ever, and Challengers has the exclusive for U.S. comic shops. Now, let's get back to Patrick and Dal and the rest of the podcast.
What is also less fun is paperwork. Paperwork's, my domain.
It is. I'm
and
sorry.
A thing that has to get done. Mm-hmm. But it also provides me with wonderful insights into selling comical books.
Yeah.
And I just finished the October paperwork.
Thanks.
I did a lot of it Tuesday. Well, no, I did the bare minimum Tuesday night when it was the end of the sales day.
The end of the last sales day of October.
Yeah, and that is when I came across this fact. So we're 10 months into 2023.
Yep.
Looking at the sales for 2023, not expenditures, not costs, not stealth through percentages, just gross dollar amount.
Yep. Money in the store.
Where do you think we compare for the year as a whole to previous years?
Like, what year do I think we're on par with?
Yeah.
2019?
So here's the fun fact that I have after doing the totals.
Yeah.
This will be our lowest year since the pandemic.
Yeah, that's not a surprise.
And even though there's still 2 more months, we don't have any hope of catching those other years.
No.
But
Down by 2
we've already beaten the previous years. And it's funny because we fall right here, and that is where we are. We are right at the end of 2020 can't count for a lot of stuff because we were closed for months.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there were months where we were making what we made in weeks.
Yeah. So I think I can't remember if it was 18 or 19 now. I can't believe I started this without remembering that. We've definitely beaten everything from 2018 back to 2008.
Yeah, that's not a surprise.
But I don't know that we beat 19.
19's tricky because 19, at least through the summer, was very strong for us.
Yeah.
Which is why we were idiots and we're like, time to open a second store.
We're not idiots for doing that. We didn't know there was a pandemic
there's
coming.
There's just a lot of stuff that I look back on. There's probably...
We're idiots for picking a location that people routinely drive cars through.
Yeah.
Or smash windows.
I mean, it's not somebody's house,
Right.
There's probably 4 or 5 things that I can think of that are the things I regret that we've made business decision-wise.
Number 1, opening the store.
No, I know that's what you're going to say. And I'm not going to name them all. I mean, I'm not going to make the list right now. But there are, opening a second store is a thing where I'm like, God, if I could go back, I would say don't do that. But yeah, 2019 was a really strong year as far as, things trending upwards and they're feeling like a sense of stability, which is, of course, why there was a global pandemic the next year.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I mean, this year,
2019 was a good year. I got to see Anne Boleyn live for the first time. I met Greg James.
I saw Superchunk 3 times that year.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I only saw them twice.
I know. I saw them festival, live electric, live acoustic.
Yeah.
It was really good.
I saw live electric, live acoustic. I did not go to the festival, even though it was a mere
It was down the street.
10-minute walk down the street.
corner.
I chose not to go. I wanted you to have an experience of your own.
It was great. I really enjoyed it. But like you've always been saying this entire year, it's not so much the sales, it's how much extra goes into everything. That how much more money we're spending for the same product, or how hard we have to work to sell that same product. Like those things,
How much it costs us to have all the product available to buy online.
make it seem like 2019 was this great year, and then this year is garbage. And it's like, no, they're the same amount of money. It's just the profit margins are lower, and we have to work what feels like twice as hard. Again, bring it all the way back because we're old. We've been doing this for too long, and everything just feels like it takes too much effort.
Like peeing.
No, that's fine.
I meant reading.
Oh, whoops.
What did you say?
I don't remember.
Oh, okay.
Again, I'm old. My memory.
That's fair. That is true. It is a rule that you are not allowed to start a sentence to Dal with, do you remember? Mm-hmm. Because the answer is immediately no. No,
Basically.
you're not.
Quick sidebar. So I wrote a lot about Common Writer over the last few years. It's not on the scale of your project, but I did some writing.
Oh, I figured that was the book that I was working on. I was putting all of your Common Writer books together.
I moved everything over to its own.
I said I'm only going to publish it when you're done.
Oh, I'm not done. I'm on a break, but I'm not done. But as a result of moving things off of a forum and onto a dedicated website, I had to reformat a whole bunch of stuff. And I would occasionally, like, while I'm formatting, look for little errors or things I want to correct or whatever. So much of the writing was like somebody else wrote it. Like, I had no recollection of a lot of these things. There's even a thing where
Were you in a fugue state? Were you possessed?
No, it's just that, like...
You let a demon take over your body to write their autobiography?
You write,
and then that's how you got in a...
Like 500 posts... And the early ones, you definitely
told a very real story.
Don't remember. There was even a thing from what was it?
Wait, he was bitten by a radioactive spider?
It was like from last year, and I genuinely, I'm reading this paragraph. I'm like, who is this I'm talking about? And I had to like do a Google search for one of the character names. I'm like, oh right, yes, okay, I remember that now. Yes, but it was completely foreign to me. I needed footnotes for my own writing. Is how quickly things will leave my brain. Like, while I'm in the heart of something, I retain a lot of it, and I think a lot about it, and I dwell on it. But as soon as I'm done with it, it's like, it's wrung out like a sponge.
Yeah, maybe that writing process,
like
is it leaving you...
Kind of.
And giving you room for the next stuff. Because if you didn't get it out, you couldn't enjoy the new things, because there's no more... You only have a finite amount of hard drive space in your computer head brain.
I find my writing to be very entertaining.
Yeah, it's like someone else wrote it.
Kind of, yeah. Yes, so I don't remember things.
You're talking about Superchunk.
I was. No segue for this one. Did you see the DC publishing announcement?
I did.
The format change they're doing for some stuff?
Yeah, basically the
really
Marvel
intrigued.
books. Yeah?
Yeah, like the Marvel graphic novels, which are the thicker collections
the Marvelverse books.
For young adult and middle grade readers.
This is not that, though.
So yeah, it is.
It's Watchmen,
right? Well, I'm just talking about the format.
Yeah,
the format is these slightly smaller books. If you've bought any of the DC young adult graphic novels that have come out, like the Teen Titans stuff from Cameron Garcia and Gabriel Piccolo, like they're going to be that size. But the thing is, like Patrick was saying, it's Watchmen, it's Batman Hush, it's
All-Star Superman,
Far Sector are like
Court of Owls.
Those are the 5 launch books, and they're also $10.
Yeah,
which is
the thing that
amazing
that they didn't specify was the length.
What do you mean?
Like, is it all 12 issues of Watchmen for $10?
It's got to be.
Is it all 12 issues of All-Star Superman? For Batman Court of Owls, is it like the first trade?
11. Yeah, I mean the things they're picking are kind of all the same size. Watchmen's 12 issues, Far Sector's 12 issues, All-Star Superman's 12 issues. Court of Owls is 11-ish. You could toss in the annual, I guess, if you want. Was there one more that I forgot about? Hush is 12 issues. Like, everything is... So that is the format they're doing. And I think if you go to the various press releases, I think they might mention page counts and stuff. These don't come out until next year, but they're already...
Yeah, June.
Yeah, you at this point, because of the way the publishing game works, you have to be talking about the stuff you're publishing next summer.
Yeah.
Like, the comics market, 2 months, if that. You could just call it classified. But for the places you want to put these books, which is the thing they're kind of talking about, this isn't necessarily for... it's not really for comic shops. That's not the target audience, although I'm sure they'll be offered through Lunar. They are for bookshops, but they're also for places that maybe have a smaller footprint that might sell a graphic novel like a newsstand at an airport. is kind of one of the things they're thinking about.
I'm very interested about how we were going to use it, because for the Marvelverse ones, they go in sidekicks, but these won't.
Mm-hmm.
And do we stop carrying the full-size versions of these books?
No, I'd carry both, because this is the thing. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of stores who are like, oh, they're not going to be the same size as they were originally printed. It's too small. It's not, whatever, fair to the art. Here's the thing for a lot of people that are going to be reading these books. They don't care.
Right.
Like, they're not that faithful to the original version where they have to get it the way it was originally done. Some people are, and we're still going to stock those books. But I look at this as like, if Batman Hush softcover graphic novel is the middle ground, this is the other end of the spectrum from where like the absolutes would go.
Yeah.
Like, they're all different formats, but it's like, how big do you want it? How glossy? How upscale do you want?
There's been a lot of comparisons to manga volumes for shape and size.
Or your iPad. If you read Batman Hush on your iPad, it's not the same size as the comic book. It's a different scale. It's a different format.
Now,
you're making allowances for portability.
My criticism as an old man is that the dialogue balloons and the captions are going to be shrunk.
Yes.
And I'm going to have a hard time reading them because my eyes keep getting worse. So that is my personal concern, but I think the idea of these 4 stories, they're way more accessible.
And
They're
also
way
the
more,
price point.
Yeah,
$10.
$10. That's insane.
Like, I'm sure there's some sense in stores' minds that it's going to cannibalize sales. Why would you not want to sell the $20 copy of Watchmen instead of the $10 one? But, like, we sell the Ultimate collection for Miles Morales Spider-Man, and we also sell the
single
graphic
volumes.
novels.
Yeah.
They're 2 different price points. It's arguably cheaper to be getting the $16.99 volumes, but some people don't want them in that format. They want the full-size comic. And so, great, that's available for you.
Can you tell me what initial retailer reaction has been?
I would assume unenthused.
Completely split.
Yeah, that doesn't shock me.
Right. Some love it, some hate it.
Yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of stores where like, this is going to be great. We're going to sell a ton of these. I got a great audience for that. And there's some stores that are going to be like, you are going to rob me of sales. There's no point to these. I don't understand it. Which, to the second group, I'd always say, don't carry them.
Yeah,
Who
that's
cares?
all. You're not robbing sales if you don't care.
Yeah. I don't think you're going to have people wandering in saying, I want the $10 smaller format version of Batman Hush. Where is it, you monster? It's just a thing you can offer to people or not. We will. You don't have to. I would love to see them do like a point of purchase display for these. Like
a rack.
Not what you mean, like a freestanding one?
Either or.
See, that's the thing. I would prefer like a little
countertop,
two-tiered 4-pocket counter one, because that's the whole point of these. Is they're small. They don't need a gigantic cardboard standee of Jason Momoa saying you could read these underwater. You just need a little countertop thing.
I want that now.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
I admit that was too good an idea.
That's too good an idea.
God damn it.
I think we have something we can use if they don't make one. But
We,
I think
we
it's
do,
good.
but I would like for them to make one.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like they probably will, because again, a lot of the point of this is to put these books in places that don't normally stock graphic novels and don't carry them in depth. So you can't just like send them in a cardboard box and be like, good luck. You have to show people how these should be displayed. You have to create excitement for them. Like, that's part of the job of DC's marketing department and production department, is to create something that makes the books look cool instead of just, here are the books, good luck.
Let me just reach out to one of my many friends at DC and help them to decide to, oh, wait, no, they all got fired.
Does Johnny DC not work there anymore?
I don't think so. Yeah, this is off topic, but you said something that reminded me of it. And there was a fun story that made the rounds of a woman who graduated college, and her dad gave her a gift, and it was a copy of the Dr. Seuss book, Oh, the Places You'll Go. And she's like, oh, that's sweet, thank you. He's like, no, open it. And he bought this book when she was a child, and every school year he got one of her teachers to write a little note in it for her.
Aww.
Up through college.
Wow.
So at the time that she graduated, it was full of testimonials.
Like teachers from her entire school career.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
It is amazing, and it was posted online, and my sister Karen, who was a preschool teacher, said, do you know how many copies of that book I have written notes in over the years? Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh, it's a thing.
It's not super unusual for it to be that book. Like, that's, I mean, just the fact that the parent every year was doing it is impressive.
Yeah.
The book is like, that's like a classic, like, parent-kid thing. Like, that's...
Yeah, sure. But I mean, I didn't, like, as a preschool teacher, the number of parents that had her write notes in it is something I thought was neat, and I had never heard of.
It's very neat.
They did announce that there's going to be Dr. Seuss graphic novels.
Yeah, Artie's doing one.
Yeah, Art's doing one. I just blanked on his name.
I think like Jeffrey Brown's maybe doing one.
No. Oh, God. James Kochalka.
Oh, yeah.
James Kochalka's doing one, and then somebody else who I don't remember their name. But one a year for the next couple of years. Mm-hmm. But I wonder, like, is that really a market that's...
It's interesting because it's not adaptations. It's like new stories.
Yes.
So I don't...
The Seussiverse.
I don't know... Pronounced Hooniverse. I don't know if that's a thing. I mean, we'll probably carry them. I don't know if that's... It's like when Boom Studios was doing, like, the Peanuts comics.
Yeah.
Where they just did new Peanuts comics. And it's like, who is this for?
Dal, this is a week where you've read a bunch of PDFs and I have not.
I did read some PDFs.
You even alluded to it earlier.
The last few weeks, you have been very good at reading your PDFs and coming to this podcast prepared. And I, in typical Dal fashion, meant to do it and then hadn't. So like today,
coasted on my coattails.
Today I was like, I gotta read some PDFs or Patrick's gonna be difficult to deal with.
And Patrick was
uncharacteristically difficult to deal with.
All day doing paperwork and invoicing and my goodness. And looking ahead to 2 weeks from now, not a great amount of books coming out. Deviant #1, that's fun.
Yeah, I didn't read that one yet.
I'm just talking about because I now have seen what's coming out for everybody for the middle of November.
That's right. This past week was not a lot of comic books.
Yeah, that trend keeps going.
Yeah. Well, as someone who's been doing the monthly catalog stuff for emails for subscribers, well aware of what the next few months look like.
So they
are not necessarily... There's another Kieran Gillen Fall of X book coming out.
This is November 15th?
Yeah.
Can you tell me how many Star Wars books are released in that week?
6.
5.
Oh, Jesus.
5.
Basically all of them.
5 now. Well,
that's too many.
It's all of them, but there's 2 specials.
I'm scrolling through
Pete Fumoko Star Wars Visions,
yeah,
and there's the Chris Sprouse Star Wars Return of the Jedi 40th anniversary cover comic.
I'm scrolling through the PRH Marvel email from today, and they're listing like upcoming. The books are in FOC this week, and then like how many variants they have. Moon Knight 30, which I believe is the final issue of the current series.
Yeah.
11 variants. 11!
Tell me if Fall of the Night is one of them.
God. Knight's End?
Knight's End. The ridiculous Moon Knight cover month where there are some books where Moon Knight's on the cover of, say, White Widow #1, and it's just a cover featuring Moon Knight.
Yeah, it's just a Declan Shalvey drawing of Moon Knight. But here's the funny thing. So we got stuck with that because the person who was down for it burned us as a subscriber. And we had to...
They had to go.
We had to reshelve all of the stuff that was on hold. And, of course, because we order Marvel comics, especially months in advance, we will continue to get special orders that they're down for that will then have to immediately go on the shelf. That Declan Shalvey Moon Knight variant for White Widow sold.
Wow.
Somebody bought that. When I was ringing that up, I almost wanted to go, oh, man, thank you. But I didn't because that
Do you think they bought it because they thought Moon Knight's in White Widow?
I hope not. Well, maybe we'll hear about it next week when they come back for that week's books. I don't want this non-Moon Knight comic. So one of the things I read was Titans Beast World #1, the huge Tom Taylor, Ivan Reyes Titans event.
Changes the status quo of the DC universe.
I might even say it changelings the status of the... Oh, sorry.
You might even say it Beast Boys the status quo. But no, in an interview this week, Tom Taylor said that it completely changes the status quo of DC. When it's over, it I don't want to use the reset, but it changes the status quo of the DC universe.
I guess, because the premise of the series is everyone becomes animal people. And a villain needs to be defeated because of it. It is very, very,
Is it Cheetah?
I don't want to say it. It's very,
is it
very,
Gorilla
very, very, very much...
Is it Monsieur Mallah?
The next issue of the Titans comic. So if you are reading Titans, you have to be down for Titans Beast World because everything you've been reading for the first 4 issues of Titans is setting up Titans Beast World. It is non-optional if you are a Titans reader. If you're not a Titans reader, I think it brings you up to speed pretty quickly. There's maybe some detail work that you might not necessarily understand.
Are you saying we should have pulled it for everyone who gets Titans?
I mean, maybe. But we gave everyone the option. They took us up or they didn't take us up.
Or didn't realize the option was there for them because they didn't pay attention to their emails.
That's also a possibility. But regardless, I thought it was a good first issue.
Nice.
I don't know if it... I think it works for people who don't read Titans, but it's not necessarily the kind of crossover event where you're like, if you read any DC book, you gotta read Titans Beast World. You really don't. Like, if you're just reading, like, Batman or Superman, they're in this, you don't have to read Titans Beast World.
I gotta tell you, I did not read the Catwoman chapters of Gotham War.
Uh-huh.
And while major things happened,
Uh-huh.
I caught up just fine.
Yeah, I was not a huge fan of how Gotham War turned out. I really liked the first chapter, and I liked the premise a whole lot. The actual execution was not my favorite, and I really, really, really did not like the final chapter. Not because they did anything where I'm like, how dare you? But, like, the construction of it is not good. There's some storytelling that is very unclear, and I had to go back. I'm like, wait, what? And then, like, basically there's a portion... Did you read it?
Yeah.
There's a portion.
Just how the Catwoman part.
There's a portion where I'm like, I can't believe they killed that character, and then like 5 pages later, that character just walks up, and it's like, how? What? Like the drawing does not match what seems like happened in the story, and either like that's not clear in the script, or the editor didn't catch it, or I don't know what's going on.
You didn't read the last issue of Click Click Boom.
I guess I really didn't like that final chapter. But Titans Beast World was good. That was good. Crave #1 by Maria Lovett. I thought was a good first issue. I think the only flaws I really found in it were that, to my knowledge, English is not her first language.
Correct.
And there is some dialogue in there that I wish an editor had maybe given a second pass to.
It's an image book. They don't necessarily have editors.
I'm just saying, like, somebody in there needed to localize it just a little bit.
One of the things about her art that has always bugged me a little bit is that she signs every page in a big way, just like randomly in a anywhere on the page.
Like an Eduardo
it's signed. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. It takes me away from it a little bit.
Sure.
But if you recall from last episode, I've read all 6 issues of Crave, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah,
I thought it was dirty.
I like the first issue. It's erotica, which is nice. It's got some literary elements to its smuttiness. I thought it was a good first issue. I was excited about it to begin with because I liked the preview that was in the catalog, and I thought the first issue really delivered. It seems like it's going to be a solid series.
Do you think you crave more?
Why are you saying it like that?
Because you want more.
Why are you doing that?
I was thinking of like a KFC Crave Bowl.
Oh.
Because you like
Crave
KFC.
Bowl. Famous Bowl, you mean?
No, but they have a Crave Pack or whatever. They had an assortment of things you get that was called a Crave something.
Maybe.
If above anybody in this room, you should get a KFC reference before I do.
Probably going to get KFC for lunch tomorrow. There was one other thing I read, and I'm straining to remember what it was at this point. I think it was another...
it was
a DC thing. It was Batman... I'm sure I'm going to get the name wrong. Silent Night? It's the one where Batman teams up with actual Santa Claus.
Yeah.
Which, it feels like is Batman teams up with Grant Morrison and Dan Mora as Claus.
Yeah.
Because it's the same basic premise, where it's like...
Isn't also Dan Mora drawing it, or he did the covers?
So, I think he did the covers and he did the design for Santa. But he does not draw the book. Michelle Bandini, I think, is the artist. Jeff Parker writes it.
Yeah.
It is set in the current continuity, more or less. And it is...
So is it Santa with the Batman of Zur-En-Arrh?
Well, it's not that current continuity, but it is like the Batman family. So it's like Batman and Robin and Nightwing and Batgirl and Gotham City. And it's not like Dick Grayson Robin or whatever. It is Damian. It is
Dick Grayson Robin with pants that he's always had.
The Barbara Gordon is in the current Batgirl costume from Nightwing. And I mean, it's hard for me to get mad at it because it's such a dumb concept, but like it is sort of fun. And one of the amazing conceits is Bruce Wayne briefly trained under actual Santa Claus when he was learning to become Batman.
He traveled all over the world speaking and learning from experts. Why would you not learn from Santa?
And this is when
he's an expert in many things.
When I say actual Santa Claus, what I mean by that is like, one, it's mythological Santa Claus, but it's also like historical fable Santa Claus, not like jolly elf, ho ho ho. It's again the stuff that they were doing with Grant Morrison and Dan Moore and Claus, where it's like he's like a Viking who rides a reindeer but also like murders monsters. It's
the David Harbour Santa?
So not the costume though. Like
okay.
It's more the David Harbour Hellboy kind of this kind of grizzled, like immortal veteran monster hunter guy.
But I mean, you said Viking and
yeah, sort of.
Violent Night Santa.
Yeah. I thought it was a fun first issue. Your excitement about Christmas will determine how excited you are about this book. I thought it was fine for what it was, but nothing that you're going to go like, well, if you like Gargoyle of Gotham, you got to get this. Like, it's a different thing. It's working at a different register. I thought it was fun though. Like when I saw the solicit text, I'm like, last thing anyone needs is another Batman book, let alone another DC holiday book. No thanks. But I read the preview and I'm like, this is okay. It's okay. Like the people making it are accomplished enough where they can turn in something that's not going to be embarrassing to either you, the reader, or DC, the company. The faintest of praise.
But praise nonetheless.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I thought it was solid. I think those Beast World and Silent Net, I believe, FOC this weekend. I think.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, since you did mention Christmas, and now that we have just passed Halloween.
Which means, unfortunately, it is officially Christmas season. Like a lot of people, I really like Thanksgiving. So I do not like the fact that Thanksgiving does not really get much of the spotlight anymore.
Look, per your taste, we do not decorate the store for Christmas until after Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Unless we have a specific Christmas-themed event we need to have some decorations up for.
Or, I mean, if you just needed to because of, like, manpower reasons, I would understand.
Yeah. But Thanksgiving is a wonderful holiday.
It's my favorite holiday.
It's now a wrestling holiday for the future.
Yeah. Is it a Doctor Who holiday, too?
Yeah, but...
Not historically. I mean, technically historically, but not...
But not.
Not really historically.
Did you hear officially it'll... the 15th Doctor starts at season 1.
Okay. The season thing never really made a lot of sense to me because I feel like when Eccleston took over, they kind of restarted the numbering.
Yeah,
and some fans didn't. Like, I don't know. It's a dumb thing where, like, I get it. Like, they are all part of one continuity.
They did restart it with,
but it's so yeah. I don't.
That's why it's not the 14th season. It is season 1.
And the last few years with the way that certain seasons have just been like a story. It's like I don't think about it.
So you're saying that the idea of a full season was put into flux,
for example.
Anyway, the point I was trying to make is that directly after Thanksgiving, as in the day after, we are going to have a weekend sale, a sale that we haven't done in a 3-day period before. We are having, we've done Black Friday sales, but this is the full weekend.
Friday?
Yeah. For the weekend, all of our back issues, all of our $1.99 back issues, the back issues that are priced at $1.99 and live in the boxes, the drawer boxes, well, not drawer boxes, boxes that say $1.99 back issues on them, they will be 99 cents.
Yep.
For the full weekend. And
a lot of good stuff in there. Somebody just found Bodies 3 through 8.
Nice.
That have been sitting in there probably for like 8 years. Bodies. Which I guess are going for something now. They were not in great condition because they've been sitting in the back issue boxes for about 8 years.
And also, all of our incentive and ratio variants will be half off the sticker price.
Yeah. So, all the 1 in 10s, 1 in 25s, 1 in whatevers that we have in stock. There's 2 dedicated boxes in the back issue boxes section that say incentive and ratio variants on them. There's a ton that are just on the
shelves.
Sales floor. They're just on the shelves in stacks.
And
all going to be half off.
For the first time, even incentive and ratio variants that are new that week will be half off.
Yeah. All the stuff that comes out November 22nd. If we have them on the shelves that weekend, you can get them for half off for the incentive and ratio variants.
I don't know if you've followed, but we have a specific pricing structure for our variants. We know a lot of stores do things differently. Some people change their prices.
The price is how much money do you have in your wallet?
Yes, exactly. A lot of stores used to do, and I don't know that they still do because it's not economically feasible, but whatever the ratio variant qualifier was the price. If it was a 1 in 10, it'd be $10. If it was 1 in 25, it'd be $25. We've never done that. We have a much more affordable and economical structure.
Yeah, what we feel like strikes the balance between what we have to order to qualify for them versus, what is a fair price to pay for a single comic book.
And that is why you can tell when you're buying these during the sale that we haven't marked them up to sell them for half off.
Right.
You're getting them for the prices they are at this very second.
You can get 1 in 25 variants for like $7.50. It's pretty good.
During the sale. Not
During the sale, yeah.
Not currently.
No. This is, I'm speaking just for the sale.
Yeah. And
which, I mean, some of those books are like the cover price for the regular A cover was like $5.99.
Yeah.
And you're getting the cardstock
1 in 25.
1 in 25 variant for like $7.50. Crazy. And this is in-store only, yes, Patrick?
It is in-store only. That is correct.
Yes.
That is correct.
So these prices will not be reflected on the website for the incentive and ratio variants?
That is because we are toying with the idea of doing something a little different for the first half of December.
Mm-hmm.
And also, on Saturday, December 9th, we have local comic creator Dave Scheid coming to do a signing.
Cool.
Which is actually a double Dave signing, because that week, not only does Mayor Goodboy Turns Bad, the 3rd volume in the all-ages Mayor Goodboy saga, come out, but also the first issue of Dark Horse Time Traveler Tales that Dave has also written.
Yeah.
So both those come out that week, so it is a double Dave signing day.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the 23rd, right before Christmas, my 2 very generous sisters will be in the store from 12 to 3 on that Saturday, the 23rd, doing free gift wrapping for anything you've bought in Challengers. That'll be a gift. It doesn't have to have been bought that day, but if you do want to get it wrapped, you need to save your receipt if you bring it back. And there'll be a variety of papers to choose from. Also, there will be homemade cookies that are available, not for free, but for a donation to the Alzheimer's Association.
And those cookies are really good. I haven't had those specific cookies yet, but I've had cookies your sister's made before. Very good.
Yeah, my sister makes cookies for Dow all the time.
She's so good at it. They're very tasty.
And I don't know if these will be Christmas-themed ones or not. It depends on what she feels like making at the time.
Yeah.
But it turns out that Team 4Fran is ramping up the Alzheimer's donation trek for 2024.
Cool.
And it starts that day.
Wow, excellent.
So cookies will be available for a donation. You can donate for the wrapping if you want, but again, all that money goes to the Alzheimer's Association, not to Challengers. And the gift wrapping is free, but if you want cookies, it is a donation. And I don't know if it's going to be a suggested donation or a donate what you want. Sure. But they'll be
worth showing up to find out.
And I'm pretty sure we're going to bust out the Keurig for Cocoa that day as well.
Cool.
But that is later in December, and we've already been talking with a couple of people for events in 2024.
Yeah.
One is almost locked in for a day in February. One is tentative for February, but we don't have a date. And we've already been talking to local people about Free Comic Book Day for next year.
Cool.
So things, as always, in the comics industry, and specifically in Challengers Comics and Conversation in Chicago, are moving forward, driving forward, down the lane, down the court, down the pitch. Do you want to add?
No, I'm good.
Down the field?
Yeah.
Down the course? Fine. Thanks for listening.
And keep reading comics.
This has been Contest of Challengers. Thanks for listening. Keep reading comics. Challengers is located at 1845 Northwestern Avenue in the Bucktown neighborhood of Chicago. 773-278-0155. Keep up to date with new releases and events at challengerscomics.com. And help fund this podcast at patreon.com/challengers.